So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Nectar of Devotion, which is a very, I would say, a very scientific analysis of the process of bhakti, Srila Rupa Goswami makes this point that everything is about relationships. So that's what rasa is. So rasa, Srila Prabhupada translates to mellow, and then he admits to the fact that mellow is not really, and it does not do justice to the word, the Sanskrit word rasa, because rasa is the happiness that one experiences in relationships. So it has two important things. It has relationship and the happiness that one experiences. Now, bhakti rasa is the happiness that one experiences in relationship to Krishna. Even in our day-to-day lives, in our mundane lives, so to speak, we see that whether we acknowledge it or not explicitly, but relationships are kind of the framework on which we build our whole existence. Srila Prabhupada says that when a child is born, right away he establishes a relationship with his mother, he or she, then with his father, then with the extended family. And then as the child grows, this circle of relationship expands. It goes to friends, then the person's own family, and Prabhupada says the society, the nation, the world as a whole. So essentially, as we go through lives, that's what we do. We measure our if you think back to the past, we don't really think back that I was a teenager at the time. What we think about is I had teenage friends at the time, or I was a child at the time. What we think about is I was with my parents at the time. So our life actually is basically constructed on a set of relationships. So given the fact that the jiva or the soul is by nature anandamayi or seeking happiness, given the fact that this happiness comes out of relationships, so as practicing devotees, it behooves us to get a better understanding of the nature of these relationships, especially when we are aspiring in our spiritual endeavor. So when we take to the study of the scriptures, then the initial mood is a very strong condemnation of relationships. It's an apparent condemnation, but we see this strong sense of condemnation. Right up front in the Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami says, Dehapati kalatra deshatma senasya satsvapi. That one, he considers his body, his wife, his family, his children, Dehapati kalatra deshatma senasya satsvapi. That he thinks that these are my soldiers. These are my protectors. Tesham nidhanam paschanapi na paschati. And then even though the person sees around him that those that are related to him are nidhanam, that they're over a period of time they're dying. Paschanapi na paschati, that the person sees but does not see. And both Sutta Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami, they speak about the attached householder who lives his life just to take care of his family, Gramedi. But that is not what scriptures are about. So the scriptures are not condemning relationships. If they were condemning relationships, then they would also be condemning a relationship with Krishna. What they're condemning is the nature of a relationship. So in an earlier state, the devotees, they misunderstand these kinds of instructions, and they say, well, I don't want to be too attached. So they give up their family. If it's a man, they give up their parents or their wives, so the women give up their husbands. And because of that, there is so much of angst and so much of a sorrow. I was talking to a devotee who lived in Gita Nagari for many years. They were a husband and wife and 3 children. They lived for 10 years, and then at some point they moved out. So once she was very fondly reminiscing about her days in Gita Nagari, that then they moved to the DC area. So they were very fondly reminiscing about their time in the farm. That life was simple, and we had our services. We would do it. We would sleep satisfied, and there was no tension. We were living in our own microcosm. And then I said that, why did you leave? And then she was laughing, and she says the problem there was that everything was focused on Krishna. And I said, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that what spirituality is all about? And so her husband's a Prabhupada disciple, senior devotee, and he said that not really. Everything is not about Krishna. Everything is about Krishna and his devotees. So when people start focusing on a relationship that excludes this aspect of Krishna, which is his devotees, then it's not a natural relationship anymore. Again, this is in the NOD, this point is made that one who's truly Krishna conscious will consider the entire world to be his family, because everybody is related to Krishna. Krishna says that Aham Bij Pradapitaha, that I am the original seed-giving father. And Prabhupada would say that that's the only way you can establish universal brotherhood, by acknowledging the existing of a singular father. But if you turn it around, that if you accept Krishna as the universal father, then implicit in that acceptance also is the fact that everybody around you is also related to you, because they also have the same father. So both of them go hand in hand. So let us talk a little bit about how do devotees manage relationships with one another. So before that, let's see the definition of a perfect relationship. In the Bhagavatam in 1.3.28, the perfect relationship is given between a pure devotee and Krishna. Savai pumsha parodharmo yato bhakti radhok sajay ahi tukiya pratiyata yayatma suprasiddhyati. So there are 3 aspects that are given over here. So let me translate the verse. Savai pumsha parodharmo, that the highest form of religion, yato bhakti radhok sajay, is bhakti to Krishna. Ayituki apratihata. So ayituki means causeless. Apratihata means is uninterrupted. And yayatma suprasiddhyati means that it is completely satisfying to one's own self. So unmotivated, uninterrupted, and completely satisfying to the self. That is the perfect relationship between two perfect people, Krishna and the perfect devotee. So when everything is perfect, when the person at one end of the relationship is perfect as a devotee, at the other end is perfect as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the relationship is perfect, we see that it is based on these three traits: unmotivated, uninterrupted, and completely satisfying to the self. So what does unmotivated mean? So at one level, what unmotivated means is that one does not have an ulterior motive. So the relationship is not about quid pro, that I scratch your back and you scratch my back. The relationship is not about I do this for you, you do this for me. If you don't do this for me, the relationship is no longer there. At a deeper level, unmotivated means that the focus of the relationship is not you. The focus of the relationship is the other person. Once this focus change, then the relationship automatically becomes very, very sweet. So one may think that what kind of a relationship is this? That all I'm doing is giving, giving, giving. Now, that's a theoretical construct. It's never going to happen. Because if you try and do it, you will see that because everybody is around you, at the end of the day, is a spirit soul. So if you do that, you will see that the nature of the spirits will manifest. So in this context, there is a nice set of it's just something, but Mother Teresa was famous for having this on her in her room. So I'll just read out. She says that people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. When you spend years creating, others may destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, others may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. And the last line is the most powerful line, which is why I put it over here. So she says, in the final analysis, it was never between you and them anyway. It was always between you and God. So this, now I don't know much about the philosophy of Mother Teresa, but this is what I would consider to be when I was talking about an unmotivated relationship. That if we define a relationship with respect to the other person, then given the fact that the relationship is the most potent access to our own happiness, what are we doing? We are giving access to our happiness to the other person. So you have the most valuable jewel, which is your quest for happiness or your own happiness. And you know that that is coming from relationships. And then you go to the other person and say that I give this to you. If you're mean to you, I'll be mean to you. Before you exploit me, I will exploit you. Before you take advantage of me, I will take advantage of you. So you're depriving yourself of that access to happiness. So that is the understanding of unmotivated. Uninterrupted. So interruptions. What is the cause for interruptions in anything? So as practicing devotees, we sometimes see there is the interruption in our bhakti. Someday we chant good rounds, someday we don't chant good rounds. Someday we are very enthusiastic, we'll do elaborate deity worship, someday we'll do the minimal deity worship. And the acharyas say that is because of anarthas. Anarthas are impediments in the bhakti. So Vishwanath Chakravarti in Madhuri Kadamni, he says that the symptom of Ghantara, which is someday strong and someday weak, is anarthas. And anarthas are basically contaminations in our heart. So same thing in relationships. That the relationships may go through peaks and valleys because of anarthas. But anarthas in whose heart? Anarthas in your heart. So the focus is back to you. It's really not about the other person. So when there is this cycle of expectation and disappointment, then the relationships will go through their peaks and valleys. That I have an expectation that I go to Varsha's house and have puri aloo, and then she gives me, what do you give me? Kaddu, maybe? Lauki ki sabji. And then after that I'm really upset with Varsha. Is it her fault? No, it's my fault. Because I have these expectations. So the sustainability of the relationship is predicated on our sense of gratitude. That if the person is reciprocating, then there is the sense of gratitude. If the person is not reciprocating, then there is the sense of acceptance. But there is never a sense of resentment or rejection. The third part, which is Yatma Suprasiddhiti, completely satisfying to the self. So this is perhaps the most important part, because I'm sure a lot of you are thinking while I'm speaking that all this is easier said and done than done. That if a person, if you're trying to establish a relationship with the person, and the person is not reciprocating, then I'm not going to be happy in that relationship. So where is the Yatma Suprasiddhiti? Or if the person is repeatedly disappointing me, taking advantage of me, not interested in me, So whether it's by indifference or rejection or a more explicit form, then where is the yayatma su prasiddhyati? So in order to get an understanding of that, there is a quote in the Bhagavatam. It comes from the 6th canto, 3rd chapter. This is in the famous Ajamil pastime, where Yamaraj says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. And then he goes on to say that it is difficult to understand. But the point he makes is Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam, that the principles of religiosity are established by the Lord Himself. And in the Manusmriti, this also appears in Mahabharata. There is this verse, Dharma eva hatohanti, dharma rakshati rakshata. Tasmat dharmana hantavyo, mano dharma hatovadit. That dharma eva hatohanti, that if you protect dharma, dharma will protect you. And dharma, tasmat dharmana hantavyo. So then the recommendation is that do not impinge on dharma, and mano dharma hatovadit, and dharma will not impinge on you. So if the relationship is established according to the principles of the scripture, then the relationship is automatically protected. So a relationship is not a universally monolithic, abstract concept. It is something very real and living, because it is between two sentient living beings. So that is why there is a lot of attention to the proper understanding and nourishment of relationship. So what is the entire Varnashram Dharma? It is basically a person understanding his position and acting according to it. Position with respect to whom? Position with respect to others. What does a Brahman do? The Brahman teaches others. Kshatriya protects others. The Vaishyas does commerce to create utility for others. The Shudra serves others. It's all with respect to others. The majority of the Vedas talk about the Varnashram Dharma. And they're defining that what is the best way to execute that relationship according to the principles of the scriptures. Small portion of the Vedas talk about bhakti. What is that talking about? The relationship with the Supreme Lord. That how to establish it and how best to nurture it. So when we are following the religious principles in establishing a relationship, that relationship is protected by the religious principle. It's protected by Krishna. Directly or indirectly, is protected by Krishna. We don't have to worry about it. So as long as the relationship complies, the protection is implicit. If it does not comply, then no amount of nurturing will keep that relationship alive. Because that relationship by nature is toxic. So no amount of anything will be able to nourish that relationship. So Chanakya Pandit in Niti Shastra, some of these are said by Chanakya Pandit, some of them are attributed to him. Maybe he said it, maybe not. Same, but they follow the same kind of rhythm. So Chanakya Pandit says that if a husband does not protect his wife, he's a husband in name only. That's the nature of the relationship between a husband and a wife. That he's pati. Pati means one who protects from apati. Apati means difficulties. If a father does not guide a child, he is a father in name only. If a child does not serve the parent, he is a child in name only. If a guru does not help the disciple make spiritual advancements, he is a guru in name only. If a disciple is not able to follow the instructions of a guru, he is a disciple in name only. So the point Chanakya Pandit is making is that unless the relationship understands its purpose, and that purpose is given in the scriptures, that relationship is in name only. And if the relationship is according to the scriptures, and one is acting according to the scriptures, then that relationship will automatically create a framework of not only protecting, but giving what it promises. Yayatma suprasiddhiti, which is happiness. In a broader context, because we are all aspiring devotees, in a broader context, if we are able to keep Krishna in the center of the relationships, then those relationships are purified by the presence of Krishna. So once Rompad Swami gave this presentation on relationships at the temple, and then some of you may remember, many years ago, but he had a PowerPoint deck that he was showing, and there was one slide that was showing rain falling on a small, like a lake, and the water on the surface of the lake was agitated. Each raindrop that was falling was creating a small eddy, a whirlpool, and there were hundreds of drops that were falling, and each of them were creating their own whirlpools. So the surface of the water was agitated. And then the next slide had one big stream of water falling in just one place. And then the surface of the water was calm and serene. So he was saying, the point that he was making was that as long as we keep ourselves in the center of a relationship, it's like those millions of raindrops that are falling, they will simply create agitation in us and around us. There will be so many centers, and they will all be competing with one another. I'm the center, I'm the center. No, you're not the center. If we keep Krishna in the center, then that conflict automatically goes away. And we all have experience of that. So we know in our case that once or sometimes twice a year, either our spiritual master or some senior devotee, they're kind enough to come and live in our house. And those 2-3 days that they live in our house, then everybody in the house, the focus is serving the devotee. So cook according to the taste of the devotee. Like when Maharaj is home, we know he gets up early in the morning, we get up early in the morning. And so everything is aligned, everything is actually peaceful. And then when he goes, then that kind of changes. Then all of a sudden, it's like I say I want this, my son says he wants this, my wife says she wants this. So we can see the difference. That as long as all of us are united in serving him, and it's not that we are depriving ourselves. In fact, we are actually making better prasadam that day. we are getting our rounds chanted early in the morning. I think somebody is not on mute. And let me see if I can find out.
I think it was Rajneesh Prabhu. I think he's mute.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rajneesh Prabhu. So it's not that, when we are collectively serving a common center, we are depriving ourselves. No. In fact, things are easier. That as we serve him, we get satisfaction. He is prasadam, we eat prasadam also. He's more regulated, gets up in the morning, does his rounds, deity worship, things happen in a very regulated way. Of course, when he goes, we get up at 10 o'clock then, just to catch up on our sleep, because he does not need a lot of sleep, so we have to stay with him. So a couple of days we'll get up late, but then we try and get back to our routine. But the point is this, that if we make Krishna the center of our relationship, then everything that we aspire to do is automatically done. It's not a contradiction of the other principles that we have said. It's not a contradiction that we redefine the nature of the relationship. It's not that we stop acting in the relationship. It's not that we stop experiencing the happiness of the relationship. All that still remains. So everything takes on a much more sweeter flavor. So being related to Krishna does not mean that we break our relationship with our parents or our spouses or our children. What it actually means is that relationship has suddenly become a lot more important. That our children have been given to us by Krishna to nurture them materially and spiritually. Our spouses have been given to us by Krishna to be partners with us on the path to both material well-being and spiritual well-being. The problem is that when we remove the spiritual angle and keep only the material angle, then the other aspects that are not conducive to a relationship will automatically come in. And when we keep Krishna in the center, then they will automatically be properly aligned. Prabhupada says, Bhakti is the easy way of loving everyone by the simple way of loving Krishna. And again, when he talks about Krishna, he talks about Krishna and his devotees. One of the mistakes that we do is that we consider we kind of compartmentalize our relationship. That these are relationships that are there with devotees, these are there with non-devotees. This is there with my family, this is with not family. And because of that, we act differently. The problem is with us. The other people are simply reciprocating. We act differently. When we are with devotees, we are very affable. We are very respectful. And then we see that how the relationship is harmonious. It's stress-free. And the same us, when we go in a different setting, then it's that component of respect, the component of deference is missing. So we experience that as practicing devotees on a day-to-day basis. That on the weekend we go to the temple, we have a wonderful relationship with the devotees. Monday we go to work, and then we have a stressful relationship. Same person, same us. The difference is that we are interacting in a in a completely different manner. So I want to conclude by sharing with you. So this was a seminar that was given on relationships a few years ago, which by forget the name of the devotee. He's from the Chapati temple. So he gave a very nice seminar on relationships at different places, but I think the lecture was recorded at Chapati. So he talks about the 4 A's in a relationship. And essentially these are just mnemonics. They are all establishing that principle of Savai Pumsha Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Radhoksajay. They are establishing the same principle, but in a mnemonic way and in a more actionable way. That is philosophy, this is more action. So he talks about the 4 A's. The first is acceptance. That important for us to accept the relationship in the way that it is. So many times we go into a relationship and in the beginning it is good, and then we start tinkering with it. We say that this is good, but if you act in this way it will be better. So what are we doing at that time? We are changing the nature of the relationship. It's no longer about the other person, now it's about us. We are saying that I would like you to act in this way, because if you act in this way, I will be happy. And the whole purpose of the relationship is that I should be happy. Now this does not mean that we allow ourselves to be in toxic relationships. So the part of acceptance is also this, knowing that a relationship is not viable. Now we don't have the Samadrishti. So we don't have the Paramatma vision where we see a friend and a foe in the same light. But we have something close to it. We may not be able to see a friend and a foe in the same light, but we can still not be disturbed by the foe. So acceptance means I accept that this person is inimical to me. I accept the fact that we cannot have a relationship. So you walk away from that relationship. That is also part of acceptance. And this is not material. This is, so in one of the classes at the temple, this point was being made that if you look at the associates of Krishna who are pure devotees, they have so different moods. Arjun is a pure devotee of Krishna, and he is this powerful Kshatriya king. So his idea of having a good time is that he picks up his bow and arrow, goes to the jungle and he hunts over there. Or he practices his archery skills. Then Krishna has Madhumangal as a close friend. And what is his idea of a good time? That he goes and eats laddus. That he goes by the stream in the river, and there he lies down on the grass and he goes to sleep. Now if Arjun and Madhumangal got together, it's very unlikely that they will have a lot of things to say to one another. So you never see them getting together. Now it's not that they are inimical to one another. It's not that Arjun dislikes Madhumangal or vice versa. But the rasas are different. Their moods are different. The swabhav is different. So similarly, and this is in the spiritual world where everything is perfect. So in the material world where things are a lot more challenging, so we have to start on acceptance. That we have to accept that there are relationships that are there and that are not there. But when we accept a relationship, we accept it in its entirety. We don't accept it in the sense that as long as you are doing what I want you to do, everything is copacetic. But otherwise, there are challenges in you. That's not what we have understood as the definition of a relationship. And ultimately, it is for your benefit. So even if one is in a relationship where one does not have the option of walking out, but accepting it is still there for your benefit. Because with that acceptance comes the protection. So this is the mystical part of it. That with that acceptance comes protection. And the protection is coming through the scriptures, ultimately through Krishna. The problem in not accepting it or acting in ways that is contrary to this principle of acceptance is that we walk away from that shelter. So even if we are able to, maybe we are in a position of dominance, maybe we have some skills or advantages, and we are able to morph the other person to be in the kind of relationship that we would like to be, it is never going to give happiness. It will ultimately, sooner or later, most probably sooner than later, become a cause of angst. Then the second A is ascertain. So ascertain is what is considered to be keeping your fingers on the pulse of a relationship. That so the relationship is between two sentient beings, which makes the relationship itself sentient. So just because we are living, we have to constantly nourish ourselves. We have to eat food, we have to have intellectual stimulus, we have to have spiritual stimulus. That's how we nourish ourselves. We don't say we are living, so we are just living. We won't, we'll die. Same thing between relationship. That the relationships have to be, they are living. So they have to be constantly ascertained. So what do we ascertain? So the ascertainment is towards ourselves. Are we doing what is expected in that relationship? Are we serving in the way that relationship demands? Are we following the principles of dharma in that relationship? To some extent, it also talks about the nature of the interactions between the two people. So in management psychology, they have this term known as the ladder of inference. And the ladder of inference is that we look at something that is happening and then we take it on our own internal ladder of inference. And we come to a conclusion that is unilateral. That I'm walking down the corridor, a colleague of mine passes by and says hello to me, and then I don't respond to the person. And now that person is very upset at me because he has gone through that ladder of inference. That this person did not say hello to me, which means that he's ignoring me, which means that he thinks low of me or he thinks too much of me, which means that the other day when he spoke this to me, it was in this context, that he does not think highly of me. So all the future interactions will now get colored by this ladder of inference. Now it's possible that I did not hear the person say hello. Possible that I was lost in thoughts. So it is something that could have been easily understood if the person took the trouble to ascertain that this is something that does not follow the rhythm of the relationship. What's going on? Then maybe I could say, I didn't say hi to you because last time when you were walking down, I said hi to you, you didn't say hi to me, and and something happens. But then at least that discussion is going on. So there is this, I mean, it's a true incident that the chairman or the CEO of Coca-Cola was once flying, and the pilot, so once they were up in the air, the pilot, he came out from the cabin, he knew that there was this big person flying, so he came and he was talking to him. And then he said that everywhere I turn around, I see there are so many advertisements that are done by your company. You're already the number one drink in the market. So why do you spend so much time and effort advertising? And so the CEO said that, so you are here talking to me. Is somebody there in the cockpit flying the plane? And he said, yes, of course, there's somebody there. So he said, your plane is already reached its altitude. It's already flying on a course. But yet you have somebody with the hands on the wheel. So the point was, he said, the fact that we are number one is because we advertise. And because we continue to advertise, we continue to be number one. So the same thing is in relationships. That if a relationship is harmonious, all the more reason to continuously ascertain for any drifts. If the relationship is not harmonious, then it's a de facto that one needs to ascertain what is it that is making it unharmonious. And then after that, the acceptance comes. That either you accept the fact or you make changes. Third part is, the third A is appreciate. So appreciation is so the equivalent to appreciation is kirtan. So what does kirtan mean? The Sanskrit word kirtan means kirti. So kirti is the glories. So when we chant Hare Krishna, when we do kirtan, we are singing the glories of Krishna. And it's not that we do it once only. We say, okay, Krishna, you're great. I know you're great. Now, don't expect me to keep saying that. Krishna expects us to say that over and over again. So every day morning, we say that how many times? 17,168 times. Krishna, you're great. Krishna, you're great. And the next day morning, we get up and do the same thing again. We don't get tired, Krishna doesn't get tired. Because just like a tree needs water to grow, the relationships are nourished by genuine appreciation. So genuine appreciation is what is externalizing our internals. It's about, so in one of the tribes in the Amazon rainforest, apparently they did not have a word for thank you there, but they had a word or a phrase that meant I see you. And that's what they would use as a greeting, as acknowledgement, I see you. So that's what appreciation is all about. It's about saying that I see you. I see you in the relationship with me. I see you as the source of my happiness. I see you as my shelter. I see you as my support. And it is something that needs to, just like a plant needs to be watered every day to be nourished. And even Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we need to remind him every day, thank you, Krishna, thank you, Krishna. So how much more so for us? So appreciation is the what do they say, the life force of a relationship. Genuine appreciation, of course, not false appreciation. That is the life force of a relationship. Many times in established relationships, we become neglectful of that. That wife cooks good food, the husband comes in, and then he says, well, she always cooks good food. And, and just assumes, well, she always, cooks good food. But the reality is that every time the husband appreciates, it's as if it is there for the first time. Why? Because the food that was cooked 10 years ago, that has already been eaten and consumed. The food that is being eaten today is the result of today's effort. That is being appreciated. It's not so much about the food. It's about the effort that's been put on the table. Otherwise, the husband says that, I appreciated you last year, and then she will say, okay, you take last year's food then. Because it's not the food. It's the effort that is being appreciated. It's what is being put into the relationship. And the fourth is act. So again, we know in the principles of bhakti, the most important thing is that it is an active principle. When Rupa Goswami defines bhakti, what does he say? Anabhilashita shunyam jnanakarmadi anavratam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttamam. Anushilanam. That bhakti is activities that are done, that are favorable to Krishna. Now, Bhayahari Prabhu was once giving this example, that the husband comes back home and he tells his wife, honey, I love you so much. And she says, okay, that's good. Where's the money? He says, I have no money, but I have so much love for you. And next day he comes and he says, I have even more love for you. He says, where's the money? He says, no money, but my love for you is even more. So pretty soon he's going to be looking for a new house. Now, it doesn't mean that money is the basis of the relationship. The basis of the relationship is that one needs to act to demonstrate the words that are being spoken. And this comes in all the three other principles that have been said. Whether it is in acceptance, whether it is in ascertainment, or whether it is in appreciation, this notion of the needing to act is very, very important. Part of the needing to act is to act upon yourself also. So one needs to be very introspective about relationships. Am I doing what the relationship expects me to do? Have I moved the center to myself? In the conditioned state, we have the propensity to do. That's why we came over here, right? We all wanted to be Krishna. We all wanted to be served. So the moment our hands are off the steering wheel, the vehicle goes in one direction. That Prabhu, your God. That's the direction it will go in. So that's one of the components of act. That have I again turned the center to myself? If so, I should act to correct it. So this is so I'm going to end over here. Again, this is a topic that lends itself more to discussion than to speaking. I kind of spoke to establish a framework of it, and I would love to hear your thoughts, your experiences. So what I'm going to do now is, let me see if I can figure out. I'll unmute everybody, and I don't think I can unmute everybody. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Prabhu, that's true. Like you said, that when we are at the temple, when we see the devotees, we get. Are you there, Prabhu? I can't see you.
Yeah, he's
okay. Now I see. So, that's true that when we are at temple and we see devotees and we talk to them, we say Hare Krishna, it's all Krishna's mercy, this, and we are so nice. And then when we go to job, we see some politics going on and then we also try, sometimes we also talk or behave in such a way. And that time we think to ourselves that am I a devotee or I should not behave like this. And that's wonderful thing you told that about acceptance. You have to accept what is going on. And one more thing about Krishna consciousness, before it was not, but now as we are becoming devotees, I noticed that sometimes I see, he is non-devotee, he is eating anything and everything, so that's why they are behaving like this, and that's why we have to we become judgmental. We have to accept what it is, and that way we have to be nice to everybody. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a good point, that sometimes we do get judgmental. And accepting doesn't mean that, like you were saying, people around us may be eating anything and everything. So accepting doesn't mean that we also start, I accept your lifestyle and eat it. But it means that this person has a relationship with Krishna, and maybe it's a little bit more covered. Right. So that's the acceptance that we have. Thank you.
And not too many expectations, yeah.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My real difficulty here is how to appreciate people. I don't do enough appreciation, and that may be because of the shy nature. I feel like I'm flattering a person, So I always find it difficult to appreciate somehow. I don't know why.
Sometimes it is. We feel that it is artificial. But I think one thing that we can take shelter of is if we relate to how we feel ourselves when we are being appreciated. So then we can get an understanding that the other person is also feeling the same way. Somebody comes and appreciates us. We feel valued. We feel loved. We develop a natural sense of appreciation towards the other person, affection towards the other person. Everything positive happens. So we know this is what happens when there is appreciation. So as long as we are genuinely appreciating, we know that we are actually we are actually serving the relationship to to make the person in a better place.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the same line, our Prabhuji is asking, so, a genuine appreciation meaning like being honest, but many times like being honest in our expression and appreciation, because if we do something more than what that person carries, that becomes like a flattering, that doesn't have any basis for it. But how do we appreciate, because many times like people may say me as like I may be honest, but it's not so much appreciative. Like what is the difference between being honest and appreciative? Because both places we are genuine and we are talking the positive only. It's not like honestly I am saying that other person is bad guy.
So there is no difference. So there is no difference. It's the same, that everybody has some qualities that are worthy of appreciation. And when we are being genuine, then we are appreciating that quality. Now, in the nature of a relationship, there may be a need to bring attention to qualities that need work. But then the relationship should support that interaction. For instance, I can go to my son and say that this is something that you need to improve. It's coming from a platform of love. He's the one who will benefit out of it, right? I may not be able to say that to my colleague, right? But this does not mean that my colleague does not have any good qualities. In one of these Dale Carnegie seminars, I had attended this seminar many years ago about, what's the name of the seminar? It's a very famous one. Making friends and building relationships, something like that. It was a 1-week workshop. And one of the first things that they say is find things in the other person that you can genuinely appreciate. Right? And if you look around you, whether in the devotee circle or the non-devotee circle, everybody has some qualities that are worthy of appreciation. Right? So it doesn't mean that appreciation is synonymous of being flattery or untruthfulness. You can appreciate and be truthful and sincere at the same time, and that will be actually accepted more so because the other person knows.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I have two realizations. One is normally when we deal with devotees, the tendency is to be more appreciative, whereas at home probably we are relatively less appreciative to our other spouse or children, and mainly maybe because we just take it granted or something. So I think we need to more, when especially I'm talking about myself, so I have to practice that more and more, because at some point of time, Lal Gopal Prabhu also said that same thing, that the devotee is at home only, so we have to start from there. I think that's one area every devotee should try to start with. And second point, I was just thinking about the cultural things. So, in our Sanatana culture, the way we appreciate versus in Western countries, how they appreciate. And nowadays, the culture is getting mixed up, and sometimes we try to imitate Western culture. So, for example, Father's Day, Mother's Day, calling father and mother saying Happy Father's Day. They don't understand what is Father's Day. I mean, it's every day is a Father Day. Why we need to celebrate just one single day for Father's Day or Mother's Day? Versus when we were near to them, at least in the childhood, when every morning you get up and then fresh up and then first go and touch their feet. But as we grow up, I don't know, maybe again because of cultural difference or maybe self-ego, we forget that. Even if when we go home now for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the first time we meet them, touch their feet. Not that every day. So how do we look at it, in terms of our, how do you say, the pressure, not pressure exactly, it's probably more kind of the cultural things that we are habitual of versus the genuine, real appreciation towards the other person.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very good point. 2 points you made, and the first point that you made is that we tend not to appreciate, and the reason is because we practice that every day. So practice makes perfect. So we have practiced that for such a long time that we have become very good at it. But the same same methodology can be used for our benefit also. So when we do bhakti, we do Vaidhi bhakti, right? It's devotional service and practice. We don't have genuine appreciation for Krishna, but we practice. And the idea is that practice makes perfect. So there is value in us doing it just so that we build our appreciation muscles. As opposed to, and I think you were also making the same point, and I agree with it, that the only way to change something is by doing it. The whole philosophy of change is that there is only one thing in this whole universe that you can change. That is yourself. And the way to change is that you do it. The second point that you make, it brings forth some interesting aspects of appreciation. The word appreciation generally is associated with verbal appreciation, but that's not it. There is verbal appreciation, there is appreciation by actions, and maybe that's what you're talking about, the difference in cultures. That in Eastern culture or Indian culture, the appreciation is more often expressed through actions. That in the Western culture, the phrase, at least between spouses, initially when I came to the country, I actually found it to be pretty odd, because the person sitting next to me, she was a young girl, married, or maybe had a boyfriend, but she would talk to him, and then she would end up by saying, "Love you, honey," and put the phone down. And every time that's what she would do. And I was like, how many times she has to tell this person that she loves him? But that's what the expression of appreciation is, reminding again and again. And stronger than that is to acting out of that appreciation. So both are important, that we express it, because unless we express it, the person does not get it. But it goes along with action. That the point that was made initially, that it's an active engagement. Of course, speaking is an engagement, but keeping it just at a verbal level does not do full justice to it. So my personal belief is that as devotees, we have this unique perspective of combining both the cultures. That appreciation by words and appreciation by actions.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you. So we are running out of time. And
one last question, Prabhuji.
Okay.
You mentioned that acceptance is not material, even accepting the positive side of it or negative side of it, like accepting in its entirety. You mentioned that is spiritual, but where is the connection, like accepting in its entirety, meaning what? Because how it became spiritual is my question.
So one way to look at it is, so I didn't say that acceptance was spiritual. The point that I was making is that this notion of acceptance is there in the spiritual world also. The acceptance was that there are some relationships that are intrinsically more intimate than other relationships. We have different rasas. There are some that are shant and then some are madhurya. Even amongst the devotees, in the same rasa, we have different moods. And I was giving the example of even in the Sakhya rasa, Krishna has Madhu Mangal and Arjun. So there is an acceptance of the fact that there is a difference in swabhav, there is a difference in propensity. So that same mood we can also absorb here. That acceptance does not mean that we accept a toxic relationship. Now, of course, in the spiritual world, there is no toxic relationships, but that principle still applies. That acceptance does not mean that, well, we have to be accepting, so the other person is insulting or abusive, but we continue with that relationship, right? Part of the accepting is accepting that this relationship is not going to happen and walk away from the relationship. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Is that answer acceptable?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. Okay, so we will end here, and we will have a Nursing Day prayer. Do we have volunteers for it? But let me end over here with Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.